Hello, I'm here.
You put your hand, oh, there you are. All right, go ahead,
Hi.
Maria.
Hi, I'm Alejandra Scampini. I am with AWID, Association for Women's Rights in Development, coming from Uruguay, member of Women Major Group, and also Post-2015 Women Coalition. So my first point with regard to FFD and Post-2015 has to do with a major concern about how the FFD discussions are departing from its primary focus and moving into a direction of focusing, dialoguing about private financing. Monterrey and Doha provided a holistic framework for the consideration of very different and very important sources of finance, as well as systemic issues that are related to the stability and governance of the international financial system. We urge the governments and all stakeholders to agree on new financing that integrates in this discussion human rights and fundamental freedoms. And we should not let discussions on private financing be used as an excuse for governments not to fulfill their commitments. This should be scrutinized for motivation and focus on private financing. So we insist that Monterrey Consensus and Doha Declaration should provide the framework, the conceptuality, and the mobilization for resources from a variety of sources and the effective use of financing required for the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. They should have their own tracks, they should have their own forms of follow-up and review. We know that the ability of governments then to use the resources depends a lot of international finance, trade and tax reform. And this framework today, and we have said a lot about it, is deeply unbalanced, it's full of inequalities, and this will inhibit the countries, its abilities, its capacity to really push, development priorities. The synergies, that we are talking here about, the new narratives about public, private, north, south. These narratives, these discussions should not divert the discussions towards fundamental development-oriented and right-based structural reforms of international trade and finance, based on principles of transparency, accountability, and participation. Why is here a feminist talking about these issues, right? Why women matter on means of implementation? Why we stubbornly come to every space to say these things? Well, because every policy, every process that we are talking about will affect differently women and girls, boys and men. It affects our sexual autonomy, reproductive autonomy, political autonomy, economical autonomy, our capacity to live a life free from violence. There is very little that we have achieved here in the process to really push for this. We appreciate the statements about, Iceland and other countries that are really pushing for gender equality and women's empowerment to be central to this discussion. But unfortunately, there is a lot yet to be done. And silencing this, silencing a gender analysis will really narrow the scope of a very big mission, which was leave no one behind. And women are a majority of these groups. Second, on development financing, our key messages is that the issue of financing is fundamental. I mean, we are hearing a lot about it, and this is key for the realization of women's human rights. So the public money for services that we are talking about, the infrastructure, will guarantee, the achievement of these rights. So we need bolder messages and then political pacts here that then translate into more practical decisions in financing for development about support to social needs, global public goods, clean environment, universal social protection, health, education. The public sector remains the cornerstone of sustainable development here in the financing strategy that we are trying to define together. We call for a binding accountability framework that will ensure this. Decisions around financing and revenue are also development issues and decisions, and so we need to hear more about how we are going to move forward proposals around taxation on harmful industries and practices.
I need you to wind down, Maria.
On extractive industries. So the resources that we are trying to look for, AWID has had a very recent research on new actors, new monies. We did a mapping of 170 initiatives, 60% of them declare coming from the corporate sector, and they move around $14.6 billion to women and girl programs. Yet, these monies are there and have not fulfilled two very principal things. One, engaging with women's organizations, engaging with the ones that have the expertise. They are not going scrutinized, no accountability. And second, a very strong instrumentalization of women. Yesterday, we heard women here and there, but yet in a very instrumental way. We are more than consumers. We are more than targets for business sector. We are really women with our own rights, and we are here to really stress our autonomy. If not, this will retrogress on very concrete commitments that here governments have fulfilled in the 90s, in Beijing, in Cairo, and very recently in 2005. Thank you very much.